Again, this is part 1, Acts of Transformation Introduction. And today we will be we will be defining Niddah. We will define what's unclean, what it means to be unclean in Hebrew, define clean in Hebrew. We will talk about the purpose of Niddah, and we will ask the question, is Niddah sin? Okay, so let's just look at acts of transformation to begin with. There are several things that a woman goes through in life, and it's a cycle. And since it's a cycle, since it's a monthly cycle, things become routine in our minds, and they lose the significance that they deserve. But these are very significant things. Our monthly cycles, or menstruation, um, our bodies preparing to conceive and to um, incubate life. Menstruation is the first thing. Conception, pregnancy, and all that goes with it. Childbirth, the labor, the transition, the child bursting forth with water and with blood. Nurturing, nursing, teaching for at least 1 year afterwards. And then returning back to our menstruation, our monthly cycles again. Um, these acts transform our world. We're bringing new people into this world. We're bringing up a new generation for Yahweh, where they define our marriages, our families, our community. They define us as women. We've been given the amazing ability to bring forth life into the world. In the scriptures, when a woman conceives a child, it's said that Yahweh opens the womb. He opens the womb up. And if the woman doesn't conceive a child, he closes the womb. And so these are things that the Most High is intimately involved with making happen. In our bodies, a seed and an egg can come together and become a whole new person. This is nothing short of a miracle. However, we don't really think about it in our culture because we kind of just are taught to really not talk about it too much, to really kind of ignore the fact that our bodies are going through these significant changes. However, change is transformation. And so we are, in the process of our cycles that we go through, we're bringing about transformation. And there's transformation that's taking place in our bodies and in our wombs that makes preparation. The milk gets prepared, our bodies prepare for new life and the possibility of conception. There's a Torah for that, Niddah. With any life events that would be commonplace in Israel, Yahweh has given us instruction. So it's no surprise that the Torah gives instruction for how to deal with our monthly cycles. And it also gives us instruction for bleeding outside of our cycles. It gives us instructions for our afterbirth experiences as well. All of these things is in Leviticus chapter 12 and chapter 15. However, we won't go into detail of Leviticus chapter 12 and chapter 15 today. We will look at those things in part 2. The laws of Leviticus chapter 12 and chapter 15, however, are commonly called Niddah laws, or laws of separation. Niddah, the Hebrew word Niddah, means rejection. It means impurity or menstruation, and it also means separation. In temple times, a woman was literally separated, or niddah, while she was menstruous, because discharge makes a person ceremonially unclean. So any type of discharge really makes you unclean. However, the blood discharge is what makes a woman niddah. Niddah also has this other meaning of flowers. And I have heard some Hebrews call Niddah flower time instead of separation, just as a more gentle gesture. So let's look at the word Niddah. Breaking Niddah down into its word picture, we see that there's 3 letters. There's a nun, a dalet, and a he. And the nun in the ancient Hebrew is a sprouting seed. The dalet is a tent door flap, signifying separation from inside and outside, or opening and closing. So the dalet separates an inside part from an outside part. It's a doorway, it's a tent door flap. It opens and it closes. The hey is a breath. It's breath, and it means to reveal. So putting these 3 letters together, we can see that Niddah means separation. It's a boundary that is being made between what's clean and what's unclean. It's like a tent door flap. It's a door flap that closes out the sprouting seed from receiving breath. So the sprouting seed can't come in the door. It's an end of the possibility to conceive life for that cycle. However, just as a tent door flap swings open and shut, it also is the beginning of a new opportunity to conceive in the next month. So it's just like, your cycle is the beginning, your menstrual cycle is the beginning of something, but it's also the end of something. And so it's the end of that sprouting seed being able to get to the breath, but it's the beginning of an opportunity to conceive in the coming month. So we talked about the fact that being niddah, it makes you unclean. That if you're niddah, you're unclean. If you're a menstruous woman, according to the Torah, according to the instruction given through Moshe by the Most High, that means that you're unclean. And the Hebrew word for unclean is tameh. Tameh means to be contaminated, polluted in a ceremonial sense, or to be unclean. The ancient word picture for tameh, there's 3 letters. There's a tet, there's a mem, and there's an aleph. The tet is a basket. The mem, which is the middle letter, means waters. And the aleph, which is the 3rd and final letter, means strength. When we put these things together, tameh is a basket holding strong water. In our midrash that we have every Shabbat, we talk about this very often. Every time we look at these scriptures, we talk about tameh. We talk about how water, when it's flowing, is clean. But however, when you gather water into a basket and it's not flowing, it becomes stagnant. And we also know that stagnant water, it gets defiled. There's dirt that gets into it, bacteria, mosquitoes. It becomes unclean. And so the Hebrew word for tameh, it brings forth the idea of dirty water or unclean water. So we know what tameh is. So now let's look at the word for clean, which is taher. Now these are the words for people who are unclean or people who are clean. Taher means to be bright, pure, clear, uncontaminated. The ancient word picture for taher again, we have three letters. There's a tet, which is a basket, a he, which is breath, and a resh, which is a man's head. When we put these things together, taher is a basket of breath upon a man's head. So air is life to us. It's breath, that ruach, it gives us life. So rather than a basket of contaminated water, which is tameh, taher is the state of having a basket of air that gives us life. It gives us that ruach, it gives us that breath. It's to be bright and clear as opposed to murky and contaminated, which is tameh. Let's look at the purpose of Niddah. When Israel was a nation, when we operated as a nation, when we was living in unity with our Elohim and with our land, when we had to distinguish between when we were Niddah and clean, because the tabernacle and later the holy temple was in our midst. Leviticus 15 verse 31 says, "Thus you shall keep the sons of Israel separated from their uncleanness, lest they die in their uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle," or dwelling place that is among them. What I want to talk about is the fact that the separation, it occurs in the woman who is Niddah, but it also occurs for the rest of Israel, for the other people who are not, or who are clean, sorry. So let's look again at Leviticus 15 verse 31. "Thus you shall keep the sons of Israel separated from their uncleanness, lest they die by their uncleanness, by defiling my tabernacle," or dwelling place that is among them. The word for separated here, which I have underlined, is not Niddah. The word is actually Nazar. And Nazar means to separate or consecrate unto Yahweh. So if someone is Nazar and they're not separating because they're unclean, but they're separating because they are clean, and they're separating unto Yahweh. When we think about Nazar, a lot of people think about the Nazarites, the people who take upon themselves the Nazarite vow, which is a vow of consecration unto Yahweh. So the Torah here is telling people to separate Nazar from the mistress woman. And it's also telling the mistress woman to separate, or Niddah, from the people. The reason for all of this separating, all of this dividing, all of these boundaries, the reason for this this door, really, that is separating the unclean from the clean, is to prevent defiling the tabernacle. Now, if someone thought that they could defile the tabernacle, they would be mistaken because this verse also says that if you try to defile the tabernacle, you will die in your uncleanness. So it's like playing with fire. You cannot defile the tabernacle, you will die. So it was very important at that time, when the tabernacle stood, when the holy temple stood, to make sure that we was not defiling the tabernacle. There is a question that a lot of women ask, and also men. And the question is being Niddah a sin? First, the first commandment given to mankind is to be fruitful and multiply. And in order to be fruitful and multiply, three things are necessary. And each of these three things is covered in Leviticus. And they each involve becoming unclean. Menstruation is necessary, and this causes uncleanness, and we call this uncleanness Niddah. Sexual relations is necessary, and man's seed causes uncleanness, and we call this Zav or Zavah. Now, Childbirth is also necessary. And childbirth causes uncleanness, which we call Niddah, and the blood of purification, which follows the Niddah. So 3 things is necessary in order to fulfill the first commandment to mankind, which is to be fruitful and to multiply. And each of these things causes uncleanness. So it cannot be a sin to become unclean, because in order to fulfill the commandment, the first commandment given to man, one has to become unclean. Fulfilling Yahweh's commandment and blessing requires the transformation of cleanness to uncleanness. It's something that we experience in our own bodies when we go through menstruation and Niddah, and when we go through childbirth. And it's also something that we experience together with our spouses. Niddah is different from a judgment or a plague such as zara'ah or leprosy. When you're unclean because of zara'ah, in the Torah, it shows that you actually are experiencing a judgment or a plague. So that means that you've sinned. However, Niddah is a natural process. It's not a punishment. It's not a judgment or a plague. It's an act of transformation within our bodies. And that act of transformation will bring forth fruit. So in closing, let's look at some blessings in the scriptures of transformation. Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it." Genesis 1, verse 28. This duty that Yahweh gave to Adam and Hava involves transformation. It involves the woman being able to conceive seed. It involves a child growing in her womb. It involves the Most High opening her womb. It involves her bringing forth into fruition life. It involves her nurturing that life. Genesis 24, verse 60 is a blessing that is spoken over brides on their wedding day. They, Rivka's family, blessed her and said to her, "May you, our sister, become thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants possess the gate of those who hate them." From one person can come forth thousands of 10,000s from one woman's womb. One woman's womb can transform this world. And Rivka is our foremother. She is a matriarch. She is one of the mothers of our faith. Psalm 127 says, "Behold, children are a gift from Yahweh, and the fruit of the womb is a reward." Children are a gift. Children are fruit. Children are a reward. A reward is something that you get because of good favor with the Most High, because you're in good standing with Him. It's a blessing.